Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Dark Shad-Bros. It's been a while. It's been my cohort. It tells me that it's been almost a month. I didn't realize we had gone that long since our last chat where we talked about the creator of our favorite television show, Mr. Dan Curtis. So it's nice to finally be back. So we'll do the usual preliminaries here for those of you tuning in for the first time live or later on YouTube. Oh, and before I go any further, that reminds me, if you right now or later on YouTube, please, even the cat wants to get into the act, and it's not Joshua Collins. It's Wheezy, Squeezy Wheezy. She hanging on for dear life, Daddy?
Yeah, I'm just trying to switch your arms.
She is. Please go on to YouTube and hit like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps us a lot in terms of building up audience. Please hit like and subscribe on YouTube when you go on afterwards and help us out here. Now, for those of you who don't know me, and there's absolutely no reason in the world why you should, my name is Peter Mack. I came up with this format because we were always chatting about Dark Shadows, and I figured, what the hell, let's annoy the rest of the world with it. Anyway, I work primarily in musical theater, in cabaret, several off-Broadway shows, penned a book called Cinema Salem, A Cinematic Guide to Witch City, and for which Laura Parker wrote the foreword to. Actually wrote Miss Parker's last play that she officially did off-Broadway, a Christmas Carol adaptation called Mrs. Scrooge. And I work these days, again, as I said, as a cabaret artist and as a Judy Garland tribute artist, singing all live, no lip sync, and performing a tribute to the world's greatest entertainer, Judy Garland, as well as a cadre of other ladies from the golden age of Hollywood and Broadway, and myself. Yes, I can sing and perform in pants, believe it or not. So, moving right along, another thespian, that's right, thespian, and one of our favorite cohorts, Michael Panzerato.
Performing in pants? What fun is that? Hello, everybody. Long time no see. I have missed you boys. Hope that you are all doing well. I am Michael Panzerato, a longtime Dark Shadows fan. I, too, do a bit of acting. My true love is Jonathan Harris. He is my hero and my spirit animal, and I do him. You can see me on Lost in Space, Escape from Earth on YouTube. And I'm looking forward to talking tonight, so I'll let it move on to the brains of the outfit, the Mr. Scott, this thing.
Ooh,
so DJ.
So my name is DJ.
I gave him a knighthood.
Sir DJ.
Sir DJ.
Whoops.
I am DJ. I am
Ooh,
Peter's husband, Dr. John Mack. We've been together 22 years, and we haven't had a fight since this podcast started. Anyway, I have been a fan of Dark Shadows since Peter and I got together. And first and foremost, like and subscribe. Second foremost, do me a favor. Please put your questions in the chat. We love to take your questions. We also have the ability, if you put them in the chat, to actually put your name up on screen with your questions. So we always love to do that. And for every 15 minutes that goes by that you do not post a question, I will take off a piece of clothing. Okay, here we go. Back to you, babe.
Now it's getting interesting. Well, there's a lot going on. You know, John and I live in Salem, Massachusetts currently. We lived here once upon a time for almost 5 years, and now we're back because I'm a performer and I feel I haven't suffered enough.
Tell them what you say. Like it's like Disney World.
Oh yes, Salem in Massachusetts with the locals. The tourists are a blast. And I shouldn't say all of the locals, but like the locals, the real natives, they're a real bunch of toe tapping.
The
people.
townies.
The townies. Yes, you know, Salem during Halloween. Salem at Halloween, it's just like Disneyland, except nobody smiles. So that's what it's like with no, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. If you've never been, come the month of October, you will have a blast. You're going to have a very hard time getting a hotel room because they're pretty much all booked up, especially Halloween week. But I say this to Michael all the time, but it's like living in Collinsport. It really is. And Miss Parker, who did her research for her book, Salem branch here, we talked about this when she came here, and she's like, it really is like Collinsport at night. You know, those narrow little streets and the old clapboard houses, and a mist rolls in, and you're by the docks waiting for Ruby Tate or Maud Browning to show up, and it's very much like Collinsport. So,
and not just a miss, sometimes a misses. But I'm Ching here on
aha!
But plug yourself, babe, because you have a show coming up here in Salem.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to post about this in some of the rooms, but this October is bittersweet for so many reasons, because we're coming up on Laura Parker's angelversary, her first angelversary. She left us last October 12th, and her birthday is October 27th. And, you know, she worked with us. I knew Lamar from the time I was 12 years old, from the time I was a little boy. And really more on that later. But over the years at the festivals, we started to work together. I would write these comedic one-acts, kind of turning Dark Shadows into a situation comedy. And Lamar wanted to be a part of them. So she stepped into her old Angelique shoes for me about a half a dozen times. And one of those was a Golden Girls spoof, where we had the Golden Girls winding up in Collinsport, breaking down and winding up in Collinsport. And near the end, Act 3 of the show, Angelique turns up to cause her usual trouble. And we actually, when we were living here in 2014, you know, the Golden Girls never did a Halloween episode. So that's what I do with my shows. We don't do the sitcom as you see it on TV. I write what we call new lost episodes. So we're doing the Golden Girls Lost Halloween episode. It was written in 2014. And at the time, DJ called up Laura, at home, and he said, "You're going to be in a show with us." And she said, "I am. What, there's no what's going on?" So the premise of the show is that the girls wind up in Salem for Halloween because Dorothy Zbornak has to go there on a work trip, and inadvertently find themselves trapped in the former home of one Angelique Parker, the only real witch in Salem, who died in 1797. And she got a big laugh out of it. Angelique Parker, Peter, you know, not too subtle there. So that's the premise of that's the premise of the show. So if you're in Salem during the Halloween season, come and see it, because we're going to be doing that Wednesdays through Sundays, October 8th through November 3rd. And then on Saturday nights, I do the Judy Garland Halloween special, where I do a special Dark Shadows musical tribute to Dark Shadows wedged in there. So that's what's going on. Shameless plug.
We want to say hello to Lori Stone, who was watching. We love you so much, Lori.
Hey, Lori.
We want to say hello to Kay Renee Caps, never misses. And we want to say hello to,
Carrie.
She is, Carrie Perwicka. Carrie, we love you so much. We know that you're listening to us. By the way, we have many fans who only can hear us, so thank you for tuning in. We are so grateful for your presence, so thank you.
Now, Michael, we were talking about, right now in Salem, it's known as Septober. Septober, because the tourists, the town is already booming, and Halloween season is in full. This is the original Halloween town. It's in full thrall here. But there's some really cool stuff coming out in the movies, and finally the trailer dropped for the long-awaited remake of Salem's Lot. And this is the first time it's being done. Well, it was supposed to be a major motion picture, and it's gone directly to streaming. We don't quite understand why, but what are your thoughts on that, Michael? I want your thoughts first.
For one thing, I find it, as far as Dark Shadows, encouraging, because they seem to have kept to the flavor of the original movie. it looks a lot more like the first than the Rob Lowe incarnation, which wasn't horrible, but it wasn't the first one at all.
Right.
And I feel like that is another demonstration of how fans like things the way they are. Don't break it if it ain't fixed. And I'm knocking on wood that I trove right. Also, the streaming thing kind of gives me some hope for Dark Shadows, that maybe somebody will say, hey, Hulu, if you're listening, or Prime, bring it on back. I mean, the Witches of Mayfair and all, these things are all prime territory for our boys in Collinwood and gals and in-betweens. So I'm looking forward, and I cannot wait to see it. What I caught from the trailer that I thought was really cool in the book was when they brandish a cross in the Stephen King book, it becomes like a lightsaber, it lights up, and it looks like it lights up in the movie. So I thought, well, that'll be interesting to see how that comes off as not campy or whatever, but I'm very anxious to see it. I hope that they develop Father Callahan more. He's the most interesting character in the book to me, other than Barlow. And it does look like he gets a bit more. And, oh my God, Alfre Woodard. Brilliant idea. She's one of my favorites, and you can only go right with her. So that's how I feel about it.
I'm excited. First of all, what got...
Can I just interrupt you for a
yes,
moment?
sure.
We want to do a shout out to Geraldine Smith, who is with us.
Ma!
Mama Bear is here. So, hi. Okay, sorry.
Shady Pines, Ma.
Shady Pines.
Ma.
You were raised right, darling. Okay, go ahead.
I'm really excited for it because it's been so long in the making, and I was disappointed. Like, the UK is getting a cinematic release, and the US is only getting the streaming release. Well, they're smarter in the UK. What can I say? Yeah. They have better taste than we do when it comes to these things. What got me out the gate when I heard they were doing the remake is when they said, we're keeping it set in 1975. And I thought, yes, please don't update it, because the moment you update these things, they usually just go, kaplunk. For me, anyway. So it's Gary Doberman, right? Gary Doberman is the director. And I love the casting. There's a wonderful aficionado, Ben, I hope I get his name right, Ben Atienavo. He's like Boogeyman Ben. He's got a wonderful channel, and he devotes a lot of it to Salem's Lot. He has an amazing collection, and he's been keeping abreast of all of this. We've all been waiting with bated breath. The only thing I think that we're all in agreement on is that book is so huge that they're not going to be able to tell the whole story in 2 hours and 20 minutes. So I still think we got room one day down the line for like a limited 12-part series, because I think that's the only way you could really do it, get as much of the story out there as possible. But I love the casting. Ben mentioned on a post yesterday, and I applauded him with a bunch of other people. You mentioned Alfre Woodard. Brilliant actress. Wonderful. And people are up in arms that they changed the gender and that she's black and
give it a rest.
It's so... It has nothing to do with the story. It says nothing to... And what I see in the trailer, I like. I really, really like.
Mm-hmm. She brings a sense of... like, Dr. Cody is sort of like... kind of like, let's let level heads prevail, and she has that about her anyway. She has that sense of calm and all. And I couldn't be more thrilled. I don't understand the big beef over her being in there. And correct me if I'm wrong, and I could be way off because I often am. But are they not mentioning who they have cast as Barlow?
It's Andrew. It's Andrew.
See people they think.
They updated IMDb today. Andrew Ward, is that his name? Andrew Ward.
He's rather young, correct?
Oh.
Very tall, very gaunt.
He looks, and they're going to go with, I think, the original interpretation of Barlow, right?
Barlow. I think it's going to be a hybrid,
at least off and on.
I hope. My idea was, I think when he goes apeshit he should turn into the Nosferatu, Reginald, or, you know, the gleaming eyes and all
that
that
was
stuff.
horrifying.
You know, it's interesting because
Totally.
Babe,
He was horrifying.
Babe, you and I have talked about this. We have a few people watching. James Burns, I know you're listening to us, and Jules Saint. A few different people have made a similar comment, which you and I spoke about on a walk the other night, which is, how are they going to fit this into 90 minutes? When
2 hours and 20.
So 2 hours, even then, when it was a 4-hour miniseries.
Yeah.
So that's the question.
They're not. I think they're going to pick like the prime moments from the book, and they're probably going to take stuff that was left, because that's the Rob Lowe version. Miss Davis said it best. Film is a director's medium. It's totally a director's medium. So if you don't like the Rob Lowe remake, it's not Rob Lowe's fault. And I forget the director's name. It's set in the present day, right up. I loved Rob Lowe as Ben because he fits Stephen King's description of Ben. I think dark-haired, dark-eyed, masculine yet sensitive. And that's like, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but I'm pretty sure that's Stephen King's description. So I loved Rob Lowe as Ben Mears.
Thanks, Jewel. It's Michael Solomon.
Thank you. Thanks, Jewel. So I think the director screwed that up. It was a missed opportunity, but they did take things from the book that the original Tobe Hooper left out. Because what I try to explain to people about the original Salem's Lot miniseries is that it's great and it's an homage, but it's Tobe Hooper's Salem's Lot. It's not necessarily Stephen King's Salem's Lot. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, in the book they had the two types of vampires. The Barlow, which was like, and then the more EC comic, brute, dumb. But in the movie they were all brute, monstrous, except for, which was great for James Mason to be Straker, you know. But yeah, I agree with you 1,000%.
So I think that
and it makes you think too. Do you ever wonder, like, and I would never want them to do this, how frightening if they could make Dark Shadows? I mean, Dark Shadows would be a very fast Salem's Lot if Barnabas hadn't started feeding on animals and things like that. He would have very quickly been the whole friggin' town as a vampire. But, you know, I thought, I don't want them to do it because I want Barnabas, that we've discussed, the loving kind of caught between, but it could easily be scary.
Yes.
A few more hellos. Hello, Adana. Thank you for tuning in from
Nick.
UK.
Nick Caputo.
Hi,
Thank
bros.
you.
I'm prepared for another
Nick
spectacular
Caputo.
show. Hey, Paisan. Thank you for tuning in again.
Always good to have another Paisan. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to turn this into a Salem's Lot night because that's not what it's about.
Right.
But we're looking forward. We really are looking forward to it. October 3rd, it's going to premiere on Max, and for the whole month of October, and I guess Amazon after that, and maybe we'll get a DVD with deleted scenes and all kinds of goodies. So here's hoping that, you know, we've got fingers crossed. I'm looking forward to it. Now,
hello, Dennis Lasley, and hello, Carmen Cruz. Okay, go ahead.
Hey, Carmen. Hey, Dennis.
Hola, hola.
We thought it would be fun to profile one of my favorite actresses from Dark Shadows. And I know a lot of people's one of their favorite actresses from Dark Shadows. She was on from day one, and she wasn't there till the end. She was almost there till the end, and that's, of course, Miss Kathryn Leigh Scott. It was Kathryn's first professional job right out of the academy. I think she had done a Hairspray commercial just prior to, that was it. It was all theater. And, you know, we'll get into this more as the show goes on, but one of the things I think that fans owe Kathryn.
There she is.
There she is,
Kathryn.
as Rachel Drummond, and as the almost doomed bride of Barnabas in House of Dark Shadows.
Okay.
Which is essentially like Salem's Lot, considering that he kills everybody. What you were saying, Michael.
Too much blood.
Too much blood. But with her books, and I don't have the first one here, but she started in 1986, Pomegranate Press. She wrote her book, My Scrapbook Memories of Dark Shadows. This is one of the other books. This is the first Dark Shadows Almanac. This is the skinnier version. There's a fatter version than this that came out a few years later. And she has published so many wonderful books, not just about Dark Shadows, Hollywood at Your Feet, about Grumman's Chinese Theater, a wonderful book about the lobby cards from the classic films, a wonderful book for any of you from her own personal experience that are going through grief. She lost her second husband, Jeff, to PSP, progressive supranuclear palsy, a few years ago. And she wrote a book called Now With You, Now Without. And I read that book a week after I lost my mom. And I've told Kathryn many times over how much that book helped me cope. You don't have to have PSP. It's just dealing with someone who has a debilitating terminal disease. Right. It's a wonderful book. I highly recommend it. But wonderful things like the Dark Shadows movie book, which has the shooting. Whoa! We're about to fall over here.
Oh.
Hang on a second.
Oh.
There are no mirrors. There are no mirrors.
There's a cold.
There are no mirrors.
You didn't show up in the mirror just now.
I didn't show up in the mirror. But the Dark Shadows movie book is great.
Oh God.
Rehearsal's
overrated.
Yes. Kathryn actually was submitted for Victoria Winters. She was, along with Nancy Barrett, she was submitted for Victoria Winters. And then found herself in the plum role of Maggie Evans, who was a lot different in those early episodes than she would become. She was touted as being a blonde-haired, wisecracking Eve Arden type, and you see a lot of that in those early episodes. Her first words to Victoria Winters are, "You're a jerk." Meaning you're a jerk for going to live up at Collinwood.
We have another visitor.
We have another. There's Nuggy. Say hi, Nuggy. That's our baby boy. He'll be a year old on Halloween.
Our one-eyed miracle.
Our one-eyed miracle, yes. And he's auditioning to play. He's auditioning to play Joshua.
Oh, somebody wants to taste me. Okay.
He's auditioning to play Joshua. I love the evolution of Maggie Evans. First of all, I love Kathryn in the role. She gave her a lot of spunk. It's on the page. But
I hate spunk.
Thank you, Lou Grant. Thank you. But I do love the evolution that we go through with Maggie. She's often compared to Victoria Winters, and yeah, I think Vicky gets a bum rap, but Maggie always had a lot of guts. She comes from this broken home, lost her mother when she was young, has a father who's turned into a raging alcoholic, and now she has to be his caregiver and the breadwinner. And that was a wonderful story arc, which really kind of is such an important crux of the first year of the show. Her relationship with Sam, particularly once we get into David Ford, when he takes over for Mark Allen. They had a wonderful chemistry together. You really believed her when she called him Pop. Mm-hmm. There was such a lovely chemistry there. Mm-hmm. But I love the character, and I said to her, I love the fact that, I'm going to mix up the episodes now. I think it's episode 18 is the last time we see Maggie in her blonde wig. And then Sam goes to the coffee shop and one of the other girls, Betty or Betsy, is on. And they say, oh, Maggie had a headache. And 2 episodes later, there she is with her chestnut brown ponytail. And I said, they said you had a headache. And she said, Peter, far better than an aspirin is a trip to the beauty parlor.
Facts.
Thoughts, Michael. Thoughts on that early Maggie Evans.
I like her. I call her the Kiss My Grits Maggie, because now she's more outwardly tough, but the character, like you said, is very very strong. In that you attribute her survival to what she went through with Barnabas, to that early Maggie, like that grit, that strong backbone. You could actually leave that to her in your mind, like, Maggie would be able to handle that. Maggie's pretty tough and all that. I like it. I like it a lot. I don't miss the blonde hair. I thought she had beautiful lady, pretty dark hair. So I love to see her with the brown hair. But that was a really cool turn.
It wasn't flattering. And then I guess apparently what they said was, Vicky is the dark-haired ingenue. And so she has to, there's got to be, we can't have another long blonde. That's Carolyn.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it was at a rehearsal one day where Dan said, "Why are you wearing that wig?" She's like, "Because you told me to, Dan." That was pretty much, he's like, "I like that better. Just wear your own hair." And Leela Swift goes, "We can't just do that, Dan. We can't just have her show up as a brunette without any." He said, "Who cares? They're not looking at that. They're looking at the story. Who cares?" That was his
She's
stock.
striking lady. She really was. And very contemporary looking, which I find crazy. Like, you could put her in any time right now and she would be fine. It's very interesting.
I've never asked her. I've never asked her this, but she did that comedy series, Police Academy or Police Squad with
Police Squad.
Police Squad, and she's playing the
Nielsen.
Yeah. Oh, watch your John. You're dropping your computer there, hon. Yeah, it's fine.
Danger.
It's hitting this corner of your chair.
Oh, okay. It's just like Dark Shadows. We're just going to keep going, even though the set's falling over.
We should feel really at home.
We're very at home.
Really at home.
We're very at home.
Wow.
There's my.
Oh my God! This won't stop.
That's it.
What did Grayson say? Why?
Grayson, why?
Why?
Why? That's it.
But they're in Police Squad. They've got her in this ridiculous blonde wig, playing the kind of dizzy secretary, and she's a hoot. I wish Kathryn had done more comedic stuff, because she's an absolute hoot in Police Squad.
Yeah. Pardon me. And I do love that even Josette and Andre Dupre, their chemistry is unmistakable between the two of them.
Very much so.
I think Kathryn has
I agree with you
amazing comic.
100%. That is a very believable duo.
And I think Kathryn has amazing comic timing. She tells some stories over the years, the different times we've gone to see her. We try to see her at least once a year at one of her events.
Kathryn's a great raconteur.
Love.
You could just listen to Kathryn talk for hours.
The Joan Bennett basement story is my favorite. But she's got great timing. So I agree she should do more comedy.
Absolutely.
And didn't she do Overseas with Jimmy Stewart?
She was in Harvey with Jimmy Stewart in London.
She played the nurse, right?
Yeah. Yep.
In the West End.
In the West End.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She has lovely memories of Jimmy as well. So she got to work with some heavy hitters. But with Maggie, it's interesting. Of course, we all know the story. I doubt there's a fan out there that doesn't know that they were going to bring the ghost of Josette to life, and were using a clothes dummy to do it, and putting her in the lacy gown and putting the wind machines on her and a green light and everything. And I think it was Robert Costello and the wardrobe mistress June. And she said, "What are you doing? What is that?" And They said, it's Ghost of Josette. And what do you think? And Kathryn was like, I think it looks awful. It looks like a clothes dummy. So she said, I volunteered to stand in for the dummy. And so then some of the other cast members came around and said, why are you doing that? That's extra work. And she said, you're right. And I went to Dan and said, Dan, am I going to get paid for this? And he said, no, we can still use the dummy. But that was her foray. That was her foray into playing Josette Collins. They
Nothing
took her
like
out,
gratitude.
right? And they are actually. I don't think there's a Dark Shadows actor alive who will tell you that they're not grateful to Dan Curtis for giving them their big shot. Because for most of them, it was their big shot, and
Sure.
even Laura said, little did I know it would be my best role. The best job I ever had was playing Angelique. But it was Kathryn's just inadvertently playing Josette, taking her up to the Spratt Mansion, which was located next to Lyndhurst Mansion, which was served as the old house, and having her run around the columns.
Do a whole episode on the house.
Yeah. With the lights on her, and that was, and Josette was born, and now all of a sudden you had double casting, even though the audience was not aware that it was Kathryn playing the part at that time. Little did they know she would go on to play the part full time.
Which is extremely eerie shot.
Yes.
The ghost dancing around and all that, very eerie.
It's very Universal. Again, it reminds me of those old Universal horror movies. Totally does.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I know my
Kevin Caputo just wrote.
Nick Caputo wrote.
Sorry, I'm
Nick,
sorry, Nick.
Things are falling all over the place, Nick.
He said a falling prop, how appropriate. First of all, I would like to say we actually have one of the most groups of fans. We have 123 people watching right now.
Yay!
So we love that in a live broadcast. So awesome. I can't get to all of your names, but I just want you to know that we appreciate you. You know what I think is really cool about Kathryn is that she's one of very few actresses that have had the good fortune to appear in several very successful franchises. Certainly Dark Shadows, that's why we're here tonight. But also she's in Star Trek. And then she's in Little House on the Prairie. By the way, to all of our friends in Little House on the Prairie land, we are so sorry that you had such a very rough time of it at the convention. Not run like a Dark Shadows convention, but always run like a well-oiled ship. So you are in our hearts and minds.
That's made headlines, and Kathryn was in Connecticut for that, and I think she's been quite a lady about it, because it was apparently not a good experience for anyone involved. But she showed up and signed autographs, and God love her. She's been a part of so many things, Kathryn. Again, she's George DiCenzo, who was an associate executive producer on the show, said, you never tell Kathryn she can't do anything because she'll do it. You'll tell her you can't start a publishing company, and she starts a publishing company. She's just one of those kinds of people. She's a go-getter. And Laura, we had a bunch of lovely dinners at Laura Parker's home, and
breakfast.
And breakfast.
The day after.
And breakfast the day after. But she really held Kathryn in high esteem. And she said, Peter, she's so organized, and nobody gives a party the way Kathryn does. You've got your place cards and the floral arrangements, and everything is just perfect. And so she really, really was in admiration of Kathryn, especially for the way that Kathryn took care of Jeff as he was declining. Lamar, and she would joke, and Kathryn has brought this up, so it's safe to say it. She said, we're just a little bit like Angelique and Josette in real life. Kathryn refuses to believe that, But Lamar maintained that, there's just a little bit of Angelique and Josette between the two of us, even though we're really good friends.
Right. Kathryn could find the good in everything, and Lamar could see both sides of a coin, and on occasion could understand that, sometimes shit happens and there's no good. So, we've been asked this question a few times, so I think we should address it kind of up front here.
Sure.
How many roles did she play, and what were the names of the roles that she played on Dark Shadows?
I believe it was 4.
We have to count parallel time too, but go ahead.
Maggie Evans. Josette. Rachel Drummond. Lady Kitty. Maggie Evans Collins. So was it 5? Was it 5 roles altogether?
Okay, Maggie, Josette, Rachel Drummond, Lady Kitty Hampshire. And what was your 5th one?
Maggie Collins.
And Maggie Collins.
Yeah.
Maggie Collins.
Yep. If anyone thinks that there was another one than those 5, because I've seen 4, I've seen 5, I've seen 6, but nobody can name the 6th. We've gotten thumbs up here. So
does anybody know? Totally, Nick. Yes, absolutely. Her role as Maggie gave the viewers someone to relate to, an ordinary working person caring for her father and brought into a horrific situation.
Yep.
Right on the money. Yes, there were a lot of people, and I know they've told Kathryn that they could relate to her plight, that they did have an alcoholic parent or a parent with an addiction. And so that early Maggie, a lot of people could relate to, whether it was when the show was on the air or years later when it was finally, that first year was released on VHS and DVD. You're totally on the money there. Maggie was someone that everybody could relate to. And she played it beautifully. Again, I think the chemistry between Kathryn and David Ford and the chemistry between her and Joel Crothers. I know she has said that Joel was like a big brother to her and that they had a lot of fun together, but they made such a believable couple. Don't you think, Michael? They really were they were so perfect together.
Oh my God. Yeah, so absolutely. And the whole dynamic when she was kidnapped and then found, and how he was with her when she was coming back to reality and all that. No, it's wonderful to watch those two together.
Nick, I agree with you as well. When I watched that, Nick, on VHS Valentine's Day week on a lunch break from school. And I remember eating my Entenmann's Valentine's Day cake, frosting probably dripping down my chin as Maggie is making her way through those catacombs. I wish they had brought those back for another episode. It really left you on the edge of your seat thinking, is she going to get out? Is she not going to get out? Especially it's the first part of the episode, which is a kinescope, and it looks even more like an old Universal horror movie because it is on film. It's on that grainy film, and it makes it even spookier. And Jonathan with that booming voice, Maggie Evans, I know you're very close. You can't escape. You'll never escape. It's great. It's great. It really is classic. So I'm with you. That's one of
13.
We've had several people weigh in here that they feel that there is a distinct 6th character, even though it's the same name. Is that the Josette Collins in Parallel Time, who's his long-lost love, is distinctly different from the Josette Collins that she portrays in the modern telling storyline. So that people said it. Terry Thomas is one of the people who said it. So
I'm just trying to remember. Wait. Do you mean old? Not Mary Cooper. Do you mean Mary Cooper playing old Josette, or am I missing something?
Terry wrote in Parallel Time storyline, KLS plays a version of Josette Collins who is Barnabas Collins' long-lost love in that parallel universe. While this Josette is still tied to Barnabas' affections, her role and fate in Parallel Time are slightly different from the original Josette Dupre in the main timeline.
Huh. I'm trying to remember when Josette sets him free and gives him the ring. Yeah. Is that like towards the end of the Leviathan storyline, Michael, when she gives him the ring and
Yes.
says, I've gone to my fate and you must go to yours,
Yes.
and
She tells him to let her go.
yeah, let me go. Here's the ring. You'll find a new
Exactly.
love
Yeah.
and give her the ring. That's
Yeah.
that's the last time we see Josette as portrayed by Kathryn. I know that. I know that. Because I think Kathryn
And
wasn't
to
even
Roxanne Drew, right?
and to Roxandru. Yep. Yep.
And then one thing I think we should just mention too, and you mentioned this briefly, but
Sure.
is that we owe so much to Kathryn because of her writing the first book, which really opened up the avenue for people even like Lamar to write her books. But to actually have a canon that existed outside of the DS universe that we knew. So certainly documenting DS as we knew and loved it, but then also opening the door for other projects, whether it was Stuart Manning's audio dramas or Lamar's books, but just really we owe so much to her for documenting.
There's no question that Pomegranate Press, and I know that after she wrote my scrapbook memories of Dark Shadows, she thought that was it, that she would never write or publish another Dark Shadows book again. And then along came the Dark Shadows Companion, which was written by the late Marcy Robin, Kathleen Resch, and Melody Clark. They wrote the crux of that book, which is everybody should have that book, and it's also on audio, the entire book, read by Jonathan Frid, Kathryn, Lamar, Roger Davis. I don't think I said Jonathan is in there as well. But yes, those books. Well, I'll tell you here, when I first discovered the show on VHS in 1990, I went to B. Dalton Books, as I did every Friday night with my mom, and I'm also a huge Wizard of Oz fan. Surprise. And I was collecting the bound books because they were reissuing them in paperback, and I had 3 of them in my hands. Then I went to the back to the movie section, and not sitting where it should have on the shelf, but exposed right ways, was my scrapbook memories of Dark Shadows. And I was like, oh my God, I've got to get this. And my mom said, oh, well, which do you want, the Oz books or do you want the Dark Shadows books? So I put the Oz books down. And I carried Scrapbook around with me until it was dog-eared within an inch of its life. I brought it to my first festival that year, June 6th, and here is the proof. Friday, June 6th, at the World Trade Center Vista
Let me take
Hotel.
I can hold it up here.
Hang on a wait, let's see if I can do it.
Yep.
And I met Kathryn, and by that point, I had taken my Barnabas cape off that I had been wearing all night. But you can still see remnants of my Barnabangs. And she signed my book, and I had such a huge crush on her. And there we are.
Aww. Oh my God.
That's Friday, June 6th, 1990 at the Vista Hotel. Me and Maggie Evans.
Wow.
With my little Barnabangs. They were starting to come loose.
Amazing.
And I have a larger photo of this that I blew up. And I brought it to Kathryn. I told her that story, and she inscribed it to Peter. I corrupted you. So,
just to take a brief sec, that episode of Star Trek you're talking about, you mentioned, is in season 3. It's like the 3rd maybe episode. It's called Who Watches the Watchers. I didn't even know that was her until the 4th time I'd seen it.
I didn't either.
That she's a proto-Vulcan.
She kept her ears. She kept her ears.
Did she really? Good.
She kept her ears, and
it's one of my favorite episodes.
She said, the only way people recognize me from that is my voice. Because she has a very identifiable voice.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
Bingo.
I'll tell you where she popped up in the most unlikely of places. One of our favorite shows growing up was Mr. Belvedere, which, by the way, every time I watch Mr. Belvedere, I go, if Jonathan Frid had ever done a sitcom, that would have been the sitcom for Jonathan Frid. He would have made a great Mr. Belvedere. I see...
it's funny that you say that. I thought it was when I was very small. I had seen a picture of him where he had picked up And I said to my dad, "Is that Barnabas Collins?" He said, "No, that's not. This different actor." But I can see why you'd say that. And it's funny that you should mention that because it would have been perfect for him. He
It
has
would have
that kind of thing going.
perfect. He needed had that that British, the aristocracy thing going. He would have been wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
There's an episode where Mr. Belvedere and Wesley and the husband get trapped in a supermarket by a couple of robbers, and the sister is at home listening to the radio, and this voice, it's Kathryn. It's Kathryn is the radio announcer, talking about this holdup at the local supermarket, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's Maggie Evans on the radio." But she has such a distinct voice.
That's wild.
Um,
Mm-hmm. She definitely does.
I
Definitely.
I couldn't wait. I could not wait for 1795 because I couldn't wait to see her as Josette full on because I loved the idea of Josette when she was kidnapped by Barnabas. That's one of my favorite stories. I think it's one of the best storylines on the show. And we get to 1795, and Kathryn, by her own admission in 1986, said, Josette actually has a little bit of a self-centered, self-absorbed streak within her. And I think the writers did that on purpose because Vicky idolized her so much. It was kind of a question of never meet your heroes.
Yeah.
That's my
And
take.
she wasn't my favorite person.
Kay Renee wrote, Heidi fellas, can't wait to hear the full scoop. Y'all have the most fun and complete background info. I think I remember KLS saying that he was actually her first real boyfriend. I could be wrong.
I know that she and Joel went on a couple of dates. I know she said that they did go on a couple of dates. She was dating Ben Martin. I don't know, it was not the first year of the show, but almost in the first year, she and Ben were dating. And I think
Tell Kay Renee the great story about one day. Joel came to work. It was on a Friday, and he had a bag with him.
Oh, well, no, she had mentioned, she's told this story many times. I'm sure most of you know it. She was going with Ben Martin to go to Italy. He had an assignment there for the weekend. And so she said all of a sudden there was a knock on my apartment door, and it was Joel with a little bag, and he said, "I'm coming with you." So he had bought a ticket on Alitalia, and they got to the airport, and there were all these people saying, "Look, Maggie and Joe are running away together." Yeah, that's the kind of guy that Joel was, and that was one of the reasons she wrote Scrapbook Memories, was because Joel had just died, and Grayson had passed away just before that, and so that was one of the things that had sparked her to write that, and also because her parents had a huge steamer trunk in Robbinsdale, Minnesota, where she grew up. And in it were her scripts. She never threw anything out. All of her Dark Shadow scripts that she saved. She had the fang marks from House of Dark Shadows in there, wrapped in tissue paper. All of that stuff was in a trunk. And it was her mother who said, you really ought to do something with this. And that was how my Scrapbook Memories of Dark Shadows came to be. That's how that.
Damn.
Yeah. But getting back to Josette, you were saying, not one of your favorite characters.
I felt she was wispy. I guess because you were used to Maggie, that you contrasted the two of them, and I found her wispy. There's a theme when Jeremiah and Josette, which is a beautifully crafted scene, they come back and Jeremiah is torn to pieces by his guilt. Josette seems sort of bothered, but not so much. And Barnabas his heart is broken, and he's handing her his bleeding heart. And Jeremiah is torn in pieces because, for all intent and purpose, his younger brother has been hurt by what they've done. And Barnabas says to her, something like, "You say this to me now, You must have never truly loved me. And her only response is, if it comforts you to feel that, then go ahead. And I thought, you bitch. You know, that's the best you got. I mean, these two guys are dying here. And then the hotel conversation between her and Jeremiah is not all that encouraging. Does she say, and I could be way off because I was sort of dozing off. I've had a Vicodin and an Ovaltine. No, I'm kidding. He says,
Atta girl.
we exchanged a few letters. We exchanged a few letters or something. She kind of, I don't know if she was talking about her relationship to Jeremiah or Barnabas, but it was like, well, we had some conversation via correspondence. Maybe it was never love or so. I don't know. I could have misheard that, but I just feel like that if it comforts you to say so, or if it comforts you to think so, then so be it. I thought, God damn, what a terrible thing to do or to say.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's when I really hit it with Josette.
Yeah, I mean, even when she first comes in, she's very happy to see Angelique, and they have that wonderful little reunion where they speak French for 2 minutes, and we never hear it again. But then it's,
Right.
Is my room ready? And you get that sense of, which they corrected in the 91 series. And that Josette is the Josette that the writers originally intended on the original show. She is just pure of heart. Yeah. She's pure of heart. I mean, when Angelique says to Vicky, what is she like? And she says, she's very beautiful. Everyone loves her, and you will too. And the way Angelique says it, it's like she's kind of saying, like, I can't, that she can do no wrong. She's never done anything wrong to me, even though Angelique screws her over. So that Josette, I wish was the Josette they had given to Kathryn. But I'll say this.
And don't you find yourself feeling...
Go ahead. Go ahead, Michael.
Go ahead.
You first.
I feel like it just shows so much more substance for Angelique and her love for Barney. Like, I know what she does is hideous, but you honestly start to see when you see how Josette treats him, like you almost want to slap him and say, "What the hell's the matter with you?" She, she really does want you, but you're reaching for this one that, I don't know. I think it just makes Angelique look all the better.
Well, and it's what Laura said, I mean, Barnabas and Angelique are really Scarlet and Rhett.
Yep.
And you kind of look at it in a way, Angelique, the roles are reversed. Angelique is Rhett and Barnabas would be Scarlet. Because Ashley Wilkes is the wispy, kind of, he's no Rhett Butler. And so here you've got Barnabas wanting this woman that's unattainable. I mean, over centuries.
You're right. Wow, I never picked up on that. Or Miss Parker was. I never picked up on
very much.
Yeah, I didn't like Josette.
And again, that's the writers. But I'll say this. Kathryn she's beautiful. And that hair, she looks like Belle from Beauty and the Beast. She looks like a Disney princess. That's what I loved about it. I'm like, she really looks like a Disney princess. Those beautiful brown eyes, and that smile. From that perspective, I can't help but love Josette because she's beautiful in a different way than Laura. Laura's different beautiful in a whole other way. Yeah, but both ladies are gorgeous.
Nick said
she has and she goes along with the description. Very delicate featured. Very, when he talks about when he sees her smashed up on the cliff, her tiny hand. She fits all of those princessy sort of things.
Very much so. And for those of you, if you're not aware of this, go onto her Facebook pages because she hasn't done it in a while. I'm sure she'll be catching up. About 3 months ago, she started watching the show for the first time since it was on the air. sitting down with her boyfriend Patrick and watching the show and giving her own critique of the storylines and the characters, and it's fabulous. It's her own commentary. She doesn't start from the first year. I believe she started from when Barnabas hits town, and so she's been giving commentary all the way through there. And I don't think she got to 1795 yet, but her commentary about how awful Dr. Hoffman is and how she should lose her license for what she's doing to me. And all of the, it's great. It's great. You have to read those posts about Kathryn watching the show.
One of the things that Kathryn made a comment on that is pretty fascinating is that, and I'm curious what you both think and then also what the general public thinks. She found it really jarring, the jump from black and white to color without an acknowledgement of it. No Chiron, at the top of the show saying...
No, there was.
Oh, really? So she missed... So maybe in the version she saw, she didn't see that Chiron.
Yeah, over the waves, it says, "Good news. This show, Dark Shadows, is now being broadcast in color."
Ah, so maybe she missed that in her copy.
And I had said to her at Lyndhurst last year, I said, you were so many pivotal moments. You're like the first person outside of the family to meet Barnabas. You're the first person to meet Laura Collins, and that storyline was so pivotal. Your episode, the first color episode, it focuses all on your character. Were you ever aware that you were a part of so many firsts for Dark Shadows? And she looked at me and said, "I had no idea, Peter." She was totally...
Well, to jump back to that Maggie just mentioned, when he shows up at the diner, got to be one of the creepiest scenes in all 5 years. Is a very tense, creepy, she has no idea who this person is, and it's very creepy. Yep.
Silver and gold and very, very old.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And then he leaves it.
Oh,
Does
and
he do it on purpose?
Yes.
Does he go to the old house?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Totally does. Because he's very surprised. Well, I mean, not that she shows up, but when she says, "You left your cane at the diner and we wanted to make sure we got it back to you," and he goes, "We? Is someone with you?" So I think he planned on putting the bite on her that night.
Got it.
And Joe Haskell got
it.
Joe got in the way.
Damn. I'm telling you, those are the creepiest. Or when she says, she opens the door to him and says she felt like she was being followed. And he says, "Well, let me have a look." That's super eerie.
Meanwhile, he knows it was him.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Well, and then Sam comes in and says, "I had to get to you right away. Another girl was attacked a few moments ago." And you're wondering, was that Barnabas? The girl gets away, but you're wondering, was that Barnabas, or was it Willie trying to procure a girl for
Willie.
Barnabas?
Well, in the audio dramas, Maggie becomes aware. She remembers everything. And there's this long conversation with she and Willie about Barnabas kidnapping her, and her and Willie kind of come to these moments where they want to get some justice. And she actually forms a monster coalition. It's actually Quentin. There are no easy choices in this world. It's not black and white. And, it's a real... And then she has a conflict with Angelique, with a similar... Angelique tells her, I could just rip the flesh off of you without touching you. And they kind of leave it. So it's, there are some very interesting moments in the audio dramas that sort of go into all of that with Maggie. And she
I
does beautifully, even just audibly.
Oh my God, yes. I mean, again, Catherine and Laura and David, and just to hear their voices, all of them. Their voices
Mm.
held up so well. I love during the Adam experiment. It's one of the only highlights for me when Willie puts her in the mausoleum, and she starts to remember, and now we get color versions of those pivotal scenes where she's,
Moments.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And someone tried to
Yeah,
trip
that
me
is
up.
great. That is
Someone
great.
someone tried to trip me up as a teenager, and they said, "Now, did you know that they were redos?" I said, "Well, yes, I know they're redos because there's no way they were gonna colorize that stuff. Number one,
Right. Pay that money.
number
Right.
two, um, there's little things like when he locks her in the coffin. In the color version, he's wearing his caped coat. In the original version, he's just in his suit." Um, and then the dinner party where he gives her the music box. She's wearing this cute little 1960s A-line sleeveless dress, whereas in the original she's all dressed up in the Josette garb for that. But I
Josette.
love those
Right. The
moments,
wedding
and
looking gown.
and the, nobody. I mean, they had some great screamers on that show, but when he locks her in the coffin and she comes out of the dream and she screams bloody murder, and Willie's like, what is it? I know what Barnabas Collins is, and you're left held on that till the next
Yeah.
yeah.
Dun
That's
dun dun or dun dun dun.
that's it.
uh. Yeah, she really was on the. That's right. And I'm thinking about it now. She really was at the heart of a lot of big turns for the show.
Very much so.
Grand moments. Wow.
And even in the first year, there's a little foreshadowing when Laura comes to take David away, and Vicky visits her at the cottage, and she says, "I don't think I'm going to have a job much longer." And Maggie says, "Well, who's going to tutor David? The ghost of Josette Collins?" P.S. 2 years
Later
later,
on, perhaps.
there she's the governess.
It's such a strange, like Maggie. You ever heard of those girls that only attract bad guys, bad boys? That's
Yep.
Maggie, the vampire, the warlock. You know, Maggie had them all. She had one good guy.
Just Joe. That was it.
Mm-mm-mm.
That was it. That was it.
Yeah, I mean the rest were terrible.
Yeah,
Mm-mm-mm.
absolutely. Absolutely.
I would love to get her thoughts on that whole, as an actor, what she would say about the jump between Barnabas the kidnapper and her relationship, Maggie's relationship to Barnabas, the person who stole her away and tried to brainwash her, to Barnabas, the hero, and work side by side during the whole Quentin haunting. Like what she thinks of that as an actress, was it just a writer's thing or a story advancement, or was it wrong, or that kind of thing. I'd love to hear that from her.
Well, now it's all, again, her memory is being jarred because she's going back and watching the episodes. At festivals, they would watch these little clips, and especially the later stuff, like Parallel Time and that. Usually they would all be like, I don't remember that. I don't remember even filming that. It's the early stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Jonathan said, I remember that first year the best. I guess because it was the first year, and so it just left in him. It was burned on his brain. But yeah. But I think now that she's been going back and watching, it's jarred her memory quite a bit. She said, I have that kind of mossy green jacket that I seem to wear in every episode. the nightgown. Maggie had one nightgown that she was obviously very attached to. Things like that.
Sarah.
Those are some really sweet moments.
Little girl, why don't you talk to me, little girl? Why don't you speak to me?
When she finally springs her from from Wincliffe, which we've all joked, it's, Wincliffe was supposed to be 100 miles away from Collinsport, and yet Maggie and Sarah walked it in about 10 minutes.
Helicopter.
Wasn't the nurse in Wincliffe the lady from Ghostbusters? My
That's
uncle
her.
thought he was Saint Jerome. I thought so.
She did everything. Anne. Oh, God. Nurse Jackson, but Anne, what the hell was her name? She was in Fame. She was in the television series Fame. It'll come to me. But yeah, she's Nurse Jackson. And, Kathryn also got other people work on the show. Susan Sullivan from Falcon Crest, who would go on to work with David Selby there. She's a ghost haunting Elizabeth, I believe, during the Phoenix storyline. And
Nurse Jackson was played by two actresses, Alice Drummond and Ann Davies.
Alice Drummond, that's her.
Thank you, Terry.
And then when Craig Slocum had to leave Dark Shadows, a guy named Ed Marshall that she was in acting school with took over for one day, and then they got rid of the character after that. But I believe Kathryn got him the job. And actually, Joel Crothers was good friends with Craig Slocum, and he got Dan Curtis to hire Craig Slocum to come on and play Noah and then Mrs. Johnson's son. So a little roundy there. Now then she goes on to play Rachel Drummond in 1897. That's her first character in 1897. And by the way, there was a funny joke once in one of the comedies that was done at the festival. Angelique turns to Maggie and says, "I've been reading the story trajectory for the next couple of months. Victoria Winters will be leaving the show very soon. Think about it. You could be Collinwood's new governess." And Maggie says, "But I'm only a waitress." And Angelique says, "So the kid will open a restaurant when he grows up." P.S.
Truth mirroring fiction.
That's right. I recall Kathryn at one of the festivals.
And didn't you do a skit based on Tu Wong Fu?
We did. To Barnabas Collins, thanks for everything, Julie Hoffman.
Because Alice Drummond is
in Tu Wong Fu.
She owns the movie theater.
I was going to say, she's in that.
Yeah,
Yep.
She owns the movie theater. And I love the whole storyline.
That's right. She owns the movie theater.
Nothing this good can be real, baby. Line, right? Nothing this pretty can be real, baby.
Oh my God. So funny.
Oh God.
Mm-mm-mm.
She did everything.
Yeah, Alice Drummond did a lot. She did a lot. But Rachel Drummond, Kathryn's next character, I remember her saying at a festival that she started working with a new acting coach at that time, and that she said, I don't like seeing anything from the Rachel Drummond era because I just see so much acting going on. And for any of you out there, know this: an actor should never act. But Rachel is sweet. I mean, Go ahead, Michael.
I love Rachel. She's one of my favorite. I mean, she's heartbreaking. And you've talked about the whole Skeevy Trask thing in the past and what they could do with that these days. And thinking of that,
We lost your hearing.
You're muted.
He's gonna go and come back in.
Hang on. What?
He'll join us in 1 second. He'll be right back.
Michael will be back. But Rachel Drummond definitely had
Tallulah Bankhead in the background, some sequins in the background.
a little, and in one of the other Dark Shadows books, you can see Quentin's
All right.
Dorian Gray face behind me there. That's one of the Dark Shadows files books.
And the Headless Horseman.
Which, for those of you, if you can get your hands on the Dark Shadows files, there's some really cool stuff in those books. They're a little expensive now if you get them on eBay, but they are worth having in your collection. Are we back, Michael? Where are you? Yay!
Are you here? Can you hear me?
We're
We hear
here.
you perfect.
It was a cousin from England.
Go ahead. You were going beautifully with Rachel Drummond.
And I really like her. She's actually one of my favorite characters. I know what Kathryn Leigh Scott is saying about an actor shouldn't act, and of course, I think one is always more sensitive to your own part. But I think she does beautifully, and you are really deeply saddened when she's gone, and for her and for Barnabas, because you thought, he really does look like he's going to have another shot, but alack and alas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When it's a great arc what they did with Tim Shaw and Rachel Drummond, and yes, if they were to redo DS, what they could show, the atrocities at that school, because there's, definitely an undertone that even for 1969, you get the impression that he's definitely, if not raping these girls, molesting them.
Oh, and you get a jealousy from Minerva.
Yeah.
You really feel kind of like Minerva is jealous of this relationship with Trask.
Yeah. Totally. But we muted you. You're muted again, baby doll. You're muted. Don't you just love live, guys? At any rate,
what's happening? He'll join back in a moment. What's happening is if he gets a phone call, it automatically mutes his microphone.
Oh, got it.
So,
okay, all right.
Yep.
We
apologize for that, guys.
But what happened with Rachel is he back? We're back.
He went mute. Can you hear me?
We hear you perfect.
It was Angelique.
And that's all I got to say about that whole thing.
Well, what happened was she actually, Ben Martin was talking to Dan Curtis, saying he was about to go to Africa. And I have a feeling, this is just guesswork on my part, that Ben was broadly hinting that he wanted to take Kathryn with him. And so they killed her off. Judith shoots her. And she got to go on this wonderful safari. They went to Kenya. And then she came back and she was Lady Kitty Soames, or Lady Kitty Hampshire, or Lady Kitty Hamster, as some fans like to refer to her.
Lady Godiva.
Lady Godiva, who is now the true reincarnation.
Did you like Kitty?
I'll tell you what I liked about Kitty, and I didn't realize she was only 18 episodes. I thought it was more than that. They were starting to give her a chance to stretch her legs again and play a different character. She's a gold digger. Yeah. She's not all sweetness and light.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, out comes the music box again. And she's the true reincarnation of Josette. I love that moment. That moment when she floats up into the portrait and then Jonathan becomes translucent, putting his hand into the portrait. I love that. But again, I just think they robbed her of letting her stretch those legs a little bit more, but they had to wrap up the story. I mean, they had to wrap up the 1897 story. It was already in its like 9th month at that point, I believe, or 9.5 months, and it ran a total of 10.
The 1897 timeline did run on.
Yes. Yeah, we were kind of getting into that with on a board recently, but I wasn't saying that it was a bad storyline, but even Grayson said the writers wrote themselves, of which her husband was one, they wrote themselves into a corner, and that Petofi thing, she said, just went on and on and on. We finally had to get out of it. You just had to get out of the story. But I think for what Kitty started out, I would have liked to have seen more of her as Kitty Soames before she would turned out to be Josette's reincarnation.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of it's a different take.
Yeah. Yep. And I think also that we come back parallel time, 1970 parallel time. I just think Kathryn deserved a lot better. And I know they're going right for Joan Fontaine, but she is such a wimp and such a victim. And again, I've said this before, the Collins family is so unlikable in that parallel time storyline. But Maggie is the most one-dimensional she's ever been. And none of Kathryn's characters were ever but that she's just flat out the same way Angelique is pure evil. Maggie is pure victim in that storyline.
Yeah, 100%. I do agree on both counts. Maggie is almost irritating. She's so wispy and scared and bullied. When he rescues her from Jaeger, and Jaeger just sort of tosses her, and she lets out that loud yell and falls to the floor. That sort of defines the character throughout that time.
I'll tell you, I wanted to show clips tonight, and that was one of them, because I don't know if it was on purpose because she's supposed to be delirious. But when he does throw her, or she's getting out of his arm grasp, she laughs. We got playback. And she starts laughing. She starts laughing at this like, I can't even describe the laugh, but every time I hear it, I start cracking up. And then she does let out that kind of primal yell, and she falls into the like
corner.
Yeah, just she falls into the corner. But it's for me, it's actually a very funny moment, just because she lets out that laugh, and I'm like thinking, is Kathryn thinking, God, thank God, this story's almost over.
The wig. She looked at Jaeger's wig and was like, okay, time to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There is one, like in the scene that I love with the portrait of Angelique, when Angelique is going to drive her to kill herself, to jump out of the window. At that point, you really do feel sorry for her.
Oh my God, yes.
But then there becomes a point when it gets to the point where you're like, okay, Jesus, leave. Obviously, things here are not what they should be. Go. But, I mean, Roger alone was horrible to deal with in that time.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, Elizabeth is really the only, and of course Barnabas, because he's from but Elizabeth is pretty much it. And Alexis, if they could have done split screen for an ongoing time, it would have been fun to have actually had Laura doing the two roles concurrently. So, Kay Renee, I thought Lady Kitty was a good role for KLS. The character herself was able to show some chops. Yeah, absolutely, you're right.
Putting the exclamation point on the fact that you could see that even with a side glance, that she was able to actually be a little bit calculating.
Yeah. She was a Lady Kitty was a sly puss. She was definitely a sly puss. You come back into the present day or the regular time band, and they did something that was cutting edge, and they had to mind their P's and Q's about it. All of a sudden, Maggie is being attacked by a vampire, and we don't know who it is. All I remember is them pulling back and seeing a silhouette, and you see a hat and a cape. And we come to find out it's Roxanne Drew. Censorship had come a long way, because to have a woman biting another woman, that was, a little riff on the Camilla story. I mean, that's really what that's a little riff on there.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. I remember the look of that. It reminds me very much of Harry Potter. The Death Eaters, is that what they're called? The Death Eaters,
yeah.
the cloak, or the Ring Wraith from Lord of the Rings, the cloak just sailing across the room. And you see it for the first time, you're like, wait a minute, that's definitely not Barnabas. Who's the other vampire? And that opened up an interesting sidebar story. That was pretty cool. That was really neat.
Kathryn,
and like you said, we've gone from biting wrists, because God forbid, to, they didn't do the tit bite, but, they did. They intimated.
Oh, Twins of Evil. Oh, my God. It's one of my favorite scenes in Twins of Evil.
Breasts were Twins of Evil?
Well, there God rest those twins, but they had lovely twins, didn't they, Michael?
Knockers. Okay.
Right.
The twins.
That's right. There's
yes.
plenty of no missing there.
I saw Twins of Evil. I saw Twins of Evil as a 10-year-old boy, and man, did it induce puberty early.
Oh my! Oh dear!
Right.
I'll give you,
where are my 3Ds?
I'll give you $2 for a nipple. They were triple Ds. Back at the story. Okay.
But it's. I'll tell you what's interesting. I think is what's interesting is that she finished filming Hods, and she was working without a contract. And she and Ben wanted to get married and move to Europe. And so she went to Dan and said, I think it was to talk about contractual negotiations. And she said, I don't want one. We're going to move to Europe. And he said, you're crazy. You're crazy, Kathryn. You're never going to work again. And just to drive the point home, she thought, this so Dan Curtis, having killed me off how many other times, he sent me to the loony bin. He sent me to Wyncliffe because he was saying how crazy I was for leaving the show. And of course, she went off to Europe and she did films there. And but apparently someone wrote a story that really hurt her feelings. It was on one of the newsstands, and it said, Kathryn Leigh Scott, American actress Kathryn Leigh Scott gives up career to marry Ben Martin and, whatever. And she's like, but I'm working here in Europe. And I always wondered if Dan didn't plant that story.
So I don't want to jump ahead here, but one of the things that people have been asking, and I'm not sure where to fit it in.
Anywhere. Throw questions in anywhere.
People are asking if she, and this is why I would bring it up now, is if she had stayed on the show, which parts would she have played? Because I've just tried to write them all down here. This is what people are saying she would have played.
I know the answer, but go ahead.
Actually, they have 5 different people.
Okay.
That I think I got this all right. So, Daphne Collins.
Okay.
Roxanne Drew.
Okay.
Haley Stokes. Lamar Trask's love interest or associate. And reincarnated Josette in future episodes.
The role that
yes,
was...
no.
No on all counts. The role that was being written for her was Samantha Collins. That was the part that was being written for her.
The Virginia Bestall character.
Yes. And then it was offered to Marie.
Wow.
Then it was offered to Marie Wallace,
But she had Somerset.
but she was doing Somerset. And again, that Samantha would have been great for Kathryn because she was another one that she was a tart. You know, she's no sooner is Quentin away on the boat and she's fooling around with Gerard Stiles. So that would have been a great character. I would have loved to have, although I love Virginia Vestoff. She's wonderful. Great. We lost her way too young to ovarian cancer. But Laura always maintained, you know, Barnabas confesses his love to me after I've been shot and terminally wounded. And she said it was a cop-out. She said, if I'm telling you, if Kathryn had come back to the show, if the show had gone on, if Kathryn had come back, all of a sudden that Josette triangle would have been back like that. So she felt it was, and I think because the writers knew at that point that the show was going off the air, I think that's the only reason they wrote that scene, that love confession, deathbed love confession. I think that's the only reason they wrote that scene in. I bet any amount of money on it.
You have one homework assignment if you any of you watch that scene to refresh your memory about the twist to end all twists. You must only look at Julia when you're watching that scene, because you get the impression by her eyes that she's just like, what? You're telling me you love her after all these years? You know, I think she even does that famous head back when he says, I'm not, he has the stones to say she was my only love, and I will never see her again, or something, and she does that kind of thing that she does. It's like, oh, I can't believe what I'm hearing.
Someone made a joke today. They made a joke online today about how much that Julia would have had to have charged him for the couch.
Jesus.
You know, talk about someone that would have had years of therapy, man. They would have cleaned up with Barnabas.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God. And I think Miss Parker's assessment was right. He could not see the bigger picture, ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
He could only see right to here.
I asked Kathryn, again, this was last year at Lyndhurst, or no, year before last, actually. I said, you know, the rumor, and it's never been confirmed, is that second movie was going to be about the curse. And so Josette would have been in it. And do you think you would have done it? If he had called you up, would you have done it? And she said more than likely yes. It would have been bizarre to have had somebody else playing Josette if they had, that second film had been about the love triangle. So she said definitely she probably would have done Night of Dark Shadows if it had, you know, if they had gone that route. And she wasn't even aware that the show had gone off the air. She found out a few weeks after the fact. She said, I was out of the loop. And because she said when I left the show, the ratings were at an all-time high. So she was very surprised when she heard that it was over. And she went on, and, you know, she did Turn of the Screw with Dan Curtis and Lynn Redgrave. She's the ghost of the dead governess, I believe. She was in Patton, or Last Days of Patton, rather, with George C. Scott. And this Halloween, guys, if you're looking for a fun movie, she did a film with Terry Garr and Richard Benjamin called Witch's Brew, in which she is the Angelique of the piece. And it's actually based on, it's actually based on a British film that was based on a book called Burn, Witch, Burn. It's a Hammer film about these three women that are trying to push their husbands. Yeah, they're trying to push their husbands' careers ahead. And Terry Garr is the nice one. And the head witch in Witch's Brew is Lana Turner. This was before Lana went on the wagon. Wow. Yeah. She's very puffy. very puffy. She looks very old. It was right before Lana went on the wagon and got her health in check. And what's interesting about it was when I asked her what it was like to work with Lana and to do the film at all at a convention, she said, there's a party scene. And we were filming this party scene in a Beverly Hills home. And there was a break, and one of the extras came up to me and Terry Garr and said, "I'm so happy that they're doing a film of my friend's book." And she said, Terry and I looked at each other and said, "What book?" And she paused and said, "And that was the beginning of the litigation."
Oh, wow.
Because they were going to try to, I guess, sneak it under the wire.
Wow.
And it's a book. Famous horror author wrote it. Burn Witch Burn. I think John's looking it up.
All I'm hearing now is Thayer's voice.
But it's worth watching. It's definitely worth watching this Halloween season, as well as the Hammer, the horror TV show they did. What was it called? Hammer Horror? Was that it?
Hammer House of Horror.
House of
House
Horror.
of Horror.
Visitor from the Grave. Kathryn is in that. It's I think
wow.
Yeah, you can watch that on YouTube. I think you can watch them both on YouTube. But she's very much the victim, although she's got the ending is really great. It's there's a lot of skullduggery going on. And a lot of famous faces. I can't think of the British actor who plays her husband in that.
Conjure Wife by Fritz Lieber.
Conjure Wife by Fritz Lieber. That was the book. And then Hammer turned it into Burn Witch Burn. And then in the early 80s, they did it as Witch's Brew with Terry Garr, Richard Benjamin, Lana Turner, and Kathryn Leigh Scott. So check that out. This Halloween season, it's fun. It's fun. It's the ending is kind of cool.
Definitely will.
Yeah, the ending is kind of cool.
The film in the UK is called Night of the Eagle, and then also another release was Conjure Wife.
Yep, had a couple of those. I know that at one of these recent Lyndhurst trips, Kathryn said that she never saw the 1991 series. So I'm wondering if she's going to take a look at that, because it was a very different Maggie Evans. In one sense, in a sense, she goes back to her roots of being the wise ass that Maggie started out to be.
Right.
In the first year of the show. And I know she tested. I would love to see the screen test. She tested for the unpicked up WB 2004 pilot to play Elizabeth.
Oh, wow.
And I
think she would have been great for that.
I really wish that they would have used, and I love Blair Brown.
Me too.
I adore her. But it's a shame they didn't go with Kathryn, and because they were courting Johnny Carlin to play Sam Evans.
Oh, that would be it. Wow.
Yeah. I think he would have been perfect as Sam. But God knows she has kept the dark shadows. Go ahead, Michael.
Beautiful head of hair she's got. That beautiful head of hair, white hair she's got. She'd be great as Elizabeth.
She writes oh gosh, Kathryn, forgive me. John, what is she writes all the time for that periodical?
Oh,
Ethel,
hold on.
It's gone out of my head. But she actually wrote an article, which I thought was so great, about why sex is better after 80.
AARP magazine.
AARP. I just got my first advert for them this year.
So did somebody. So did somebody else in this room.
She, yeah.
No.
Oh, get out of here! Go to hell.
It comes to the best of us.
Yeah.
It comes to the best of us.
But nothing keeps Kathryn down. I keep saying Kathryn is one of the people I want to be when I grow up. She's, again, between all of the books, This one I haven't gotten around to reading yet, but September Girl is a novel that she wrote. Dark Passages, which is actually about a vampire who gets a role on a vampire soap opera in the 60s in New York.
Oh wow!
So that's really fun.
What's the one that I read about the detective series?
Oh my God, yes.
Oh gosh.
Yes. Pull it up. Pull
Yep.
it up. Last Dance at the Savoy is about her time with Jeff. And then again, Now With You, Now Without is anyone who has ever gone through grief should read that book because Kathryn deals with it.
Down and Out in Beverly Hills.
Down and Out in Beverly Hills.
And it has a sequel called Jinxed.
And Jinxed is the sequel. Yeah, those are the mystery books. Yeah. I don't think there's anything that Kathryn Leigh Scott can't do.
She gave a beautiful tribute to Miss Parker.
She did.
Yeah.
Lovely. And we were with her.
I thought that was lovely. I saw that on YouTube. It was very beautiful.
We were with her a few days after Lamar passed. And
at Lyndhurst.
Yeah. It's
Kathryn is she's a very strong woman, and I mean that in every good sense of the word. But when we were at that event at Lyndhurst, and they had a big beautiful photo of Lamar up, and she started talking about her and their time together, and she said, and next week would have been her 85th birthday. She totally broke down. I'd never seen Kathryn do that before. It broke. I think it broke everybody's heart because you could just see, how devastating Lamar's death was to her. So.
And Kathryn's so blessed to have her boyfriend Patrick, but she's dealt with such enormous loss and has been so honest about it. She obviously her first husband Ben Martin, who she's kept his legacy alive. He was a Time Life photographer. She recently published a book a few months ago with Marcel Marceau's widow because the largest collection of Marcel Marceau photos were taken by Ben. She has written open and honestly about her loss with her husband, and then, she sat down for a series of interviews that she recorded that became an article that Stuart Manning put out, but that we hope becomes something larger.
I think it's coming out. It's not out yet.
But she has hours and hours of audio tape of the two of them sitting down. And you have to realize they had so much in common that certainly later in life they became closest of friends. So I would love to see that come into something because if anybody could write it wonderfully, it would be Kathryn herself.
Oh, absolutely. 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 Yeah, I mean, she was such a pivotal part of Dark Shadows. She's been such a pivotal part of keeping the Dark Shadows legacy alive
100%.
Through those books, because so many people, I think, rediscovered the show through the books, being part of the audio dramas. And I think it was Penny Dreadful, Danielle, Tara at Collinwood, who pointed out Kathryn has had the longest legacy with Dark Shadows. She was on from the first episode. She's continued to play Maggie Evans all through these audio dramas. Plus with the books and everything, that I think she has the longest legacy with the show out of anyone who's certainly still around.
Yeah, she would have to be, yeah.
And you're more. We've only listened to a few of the audios, but you've listened to all of the audio dramas.
A lot of them. There are a lot, but yeah, I've listened to quite a few. She's a very different Maggie. I mean, the whole Barnabas Maggie thing is kind of out. The Dr. Hoffman's bee amulet must have broken or something. But she's got sort of at one point she's created an anti-monster sort of league. And then there's a Christmas story where she's back working. So she's she puts it away, but she's very mistrustful of the family. Like she owns the inn. Roger gave her that as a gift. And she's sort of catering their either Thanksgiving or their Christmas. And it's a very cute story because they're trying to make Angelique understand Christmas.
Aww.
And it's very nice. And there's a guy that does Thayer's voice who does very well. But she says in one of them, she says to somebody that's human, be careful of them. They're playing, they're usually rolling the dice on a game that involves everybody else, and they're pretty high stakes.
Wow.
So she warns whoever this person is that the Collins family tends to involve people that shouldn't be involved in. It's an interesting dichotomy with her and Quentin.
Sure. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, she really has had an amazing legacy with the show, and she's pushing for this sequel series. And I know I asked her, I said, listen, if you could be in it, because we all want them to be in it.
Right.
Her and David and Jim Storm and whoever from the original cast who wants to be in it. I know she's pushing hard. She wants to see that series come to fruition, and as she put it, it would be a nice pink bow on a career. That her first professional job, there would be just a lovely pink bow on the career to
God, I hope so.
be a part of that. So we're all hoping that happens.
And the two people who really have done so much, who pick up the phone and call the other actors, Kathryn is the person who does it the most. And then certainly Jim Storm.
And Marie.
Yeah. I was in the car with Marie. We were running an errand together, and Lamar had died the day before. And I was with Marie, and the phone rang, and it was Jim and Valerie Storm, just wanting to make sure that Marie was okay, and that, and the four of us we cried, obviously, and, we laughed, but really the Jim Storms of the world and the Kathryns of the world, and certainly Marie, really are keeping the core remaining group in touch with each other.
Yeah.
Which I think is remarkable and wonderful. So.
Yeah.
And so much of that is devoted to the person we've been talking about tonight.
Very much so.
This has been an amazing episode.
Very much so, yeah. We thank you, Kathryn, for keeping the legacy of Dark Shadows alive. And, she's going to be at Chiller Theater. She just announced she will be there with Kate Jackson. Kate, this is her, I think, second appearance.
I can believe that.
Yeah. They're not going to be at the same table, but they are going to be at Chiller Theater. That's October...
Not because they don't want to be.
No, just the way it works. October 25, 26, 27, I believe, is when they're going to be there. And so check them out.
But they'll be close because a lot of people don't realize this, but Chiller Theater has kind of the theme celebrities in one section, but then everybody else is alphabetical order. So she won't be very far away from her. Jackson and Leigh Scott.
So she's going to be there. And I just have to share this again because this will always be my favorite memory of me and Maggie Evans. The first night I ever met Maggie Evans, that was a lot of fun. And I've got to tout the other groups. Resident of Collinwood, Collinsport After Dark, Between the Shadows. There's just so much out there. Particularly Terror at Collinwood with Penny Dreadful, Danielle. If you have not seen the last episode, I stayed up last Saturday till 4 a.m. to listen to it because she had Mary O'Leary on, and finally, so much of the crux of why Dark Shadows was canceled came out. Why it was canceled.
A must-listen-to episode.
It is a must-listen-to. There are things that I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that this happened and the way it happened and that it didn't have to happen. It's riveting. It's a really riveting episode. So check out that episode of Terror at Collinwood. They're all good. They're all good, but this is a goodie in terms of all of this wonderful information as to why the show was canceled. And certain creator doesn't coming off looking too good, and I love and adore him, but he shot himself in the foot.
Right.
So check out that episode of Terror at Collinwood, and we're going to be back. We will be back soon. I have a feeling
Sooner than a month.
Sooner than a month. With our show schedule coming up in Salem, we probably won't be able to do Sunday nights, so it'll probably be...
We're performing Wednesday through Sunday.
Early on in the week rather than on Sundays. And if you're in Salem, come and check out the Golden Girls Lost Halloween episode and learn about the curse of Angelique Parker, and the Judy Garland Halloween special that features a special musical salute to Dark Shadows.
And then Peter sang a song today that I haven't heard in years, but oh my God, I was pissing my pants. It was so funny.
And there's something important we're leaving out, and I don't want to sign off without saying it.
Birthdays, anniversaries, shows.
The shows, and there is a subsidiary of this show coming up, and that is all I am at liberty to say, and hopefully it will be up for you to watch within the next 7 days.
We can't tell you what it is.
I can't say anything more than that, but it's been a long time in the making.
So no Easter egg.
Stay tuned for that, and keep tuning in. If you're on YouTube, hit like and subscribe. And if you need a Dr. Smith, Jonathan Harris tribute artist, Michael Panzerato is your man. Give him a call. For any of your acting needs, give him a call. And you can call us too. So
the fun stuff, baby.
Thank you, Mama Bear, Geraldine Smith. She had another great evening.
Thank you. Thanks, Geraldine. Thanks for tuning in.
Happy anniversary to you two, by the way.
Oh, happy anniversary.
Yay! Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary. And guys, have a wonderful week, and we will see you back at Dark. And just in honor of Miss Scott, we are signing off on that note. So thank you so much. Good night and God bless.
Good night.
I started to get lightheaded.
Because all you've had is cereal.